Talk Like That, a podcast by Mark Byron Dallas. Episode 2, August 2020. Talk Like Hadley Kay. Welcome to Talk Like That. My name is Mark Dallas, and today I'll be talking to former child actor turned voice talent, Hadley Kay. His formative years were spent being rescued by a DC superhero, and also going to camp with none other than Bill Murray. He is now better known as the voice of Rogers, but he's also the voice of the Honey Nut Cheerios Bee, Podgy Pig and Rupert, and Scooby-Doo. In our interview, we talk about changing your accent early to make money, singing the Cheers theme tune in a Russian accent, turning an embarrassing disappointment into a badge of pride, taking care of your moneymaker, and growing up with a kid destined for the Hollywood A-list. Again, I apologize for the quality of my sound in this recording, as it was recorded pre-sound booth. And just a warning that there are some rude words later on in the podcast. I have with me now Hadley Kay, voice artist extraordinaire. Hadley, I know we've got a lot to get through because you've done so much. And first of all, thank you so much for joining us on Talk Like That.
It is my pleasure.
It's great to have you on. And so first of all, I won't dwell too long on your childhood years, but they're definitely worth a mention because looking at your bio, oh man, it couldn't be any more Canadian. So I'll just go through this as quickly as I can. As a 6-year-old, you were rescued at Niagara Falls by Christopher Reeve in Superman 2. And shortly after that, you appeared as Bradley alongside the legendary Bill Murray in the Canadian comedy film Meatballs, directed by Ivan Reitman. And that's just for starters. So, you know, you've been in some Canadian classics, right?
Yeah, I have. I was lucky to get into there. You know, the acting thing in you know, they call it Hollywood North now. Yeah. But it was a very small community, especially for American films coming here was quite a big deal. And I somehow found my way into it. There was, you know, only a handful of go-to kids back when I was a kid for films. And in Superman, I was playing 6, but I was actually nine years old.
Oh, right. Okay.
I was tiny. And that was half the reason that I was actually cast in so many things, because I looked like I could barely read, but I was actually already in grade 3, 4 and could speak. So that's why they like to hire me.
So that was an advantage then, actually being small for your age.
Yeah.
Well, you turned it into an advantage anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I did Superman in 1978.
Okay. But that must have been a blast, though, like meeting Superman.
Yeah, it was amazing. But the funny thing is I was so young, and my whole family is actually British as well.
Okay.
My parents came here just before I was born. My two older brothers were born there. So I grew up with the British accent. In fact, in my earliest commercials, directors would often say, you know, "That's great, Hadley. Could you do it again? But you sound a little bit British." And I did. It was like, "Mummy, could I have another?" You know, it was very much like this, right? So consequently, you know, a lot of my voiceovers ended up being British because I can turn it on and off at will.
Great. So you can code switch with no problem there.
Exactly. Yeah. And
that's awesome, man.
Yeah. Thanks, dude. Yeah. So.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know. I thought you were born in Toronto. Like I just looked at your IMDb page. So you were born in Toronto and then you grew up in England, or you grew up with English parents, right?
Yes, I grew up with English parents and English brothers, and yeah. So. You know, that's what I learned growing up. That's, you know, I learned the Queen's English. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's a bit like the situation with my kids, because they just sound Canadian to our ears. But then a friend of ours was visiting and said, "So your kids have got just a little bit of an English accent." I'm like, "Really?
Oh, interesting."
Do they? Yeah. So they and. The funny thing is, like, when they're hanging around with their buddies and so on in the playground, you know, they don't sound any different to the others, except when one of them will say, "Well, I was wearing my dressing gown," and they'll be like, "You're what?"
or my
And they're
jumper.
like, yeah. I had this jumper on. They're like, you're what? Dressing? You mean your bathrobe? Oh, you mean your sweater? Yeah. So it comes out in the vocabulary. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. So your accent changed over the years, then, obviously.
My accent changed, mostly because it had to. It really was. It wasn't a problem, but it was. It was said to me enough over the years when I was really young and first starting. It just came out that way, and I'd say thank you. And it's also the lilt in the voice. You know, it's much more a much more musical. Speak, you know, the same way, you know, an Irish accent is even more musical. You know, there's a sing-songness to it that a Canadian accent is very, you know, as Russell Peters says, we sound like donkeys, you know. You know, get out, F you, you know. So,
that's right.
And he's bang on. So,
awesome. Yeah. Okay, so I mentioned that you've been in some Canadian classics. The ones I have in mind are King of Kensington. So most Canadians are going to know that show. I'd never heard of it until I'd come to Toronto, and then I saw the statue down in, you know, Kensington Park or whatever it is. And it's like, who is this dude? It's like, oh yeah, that's the guy from King of Kensington. And I'm like, who's that? So you were in that. You appeared as a kid in that, right?
I did, yeah. Yeah, you know, and I would love to, I've searched for it on YouTube, and I think they have every single episode except for mine.
Oh no!
And it'll probably surface eventually, but I do remember my character. His name was Sean Grossman, and Snake, and Snake. And the reason it was and Snake is because the king was doing some, you know, local talent competition at the community center. You know, that was part of stuff he would do, and so I was like, I think I actually was 6 when I did that.
Oh wow!
I started. I was a union pro by 5 years old, so it's pretty sad. The government's been taking taxes from me since before I could read.
And another thing you've been in, or another couple of things you've been in, which blew me away, was that you've been in the 2 things that I remember growing up as a kid that were actually from Canada. And the only 2 shows I remember from Canada when I was in the United Kingdom was Kids in the Hall and The Littlest Hobo. And you've been in both of those.
There's a boy. He tongues
calling me.
There you go.
Oh God,
and the Littlest Hobo was interesting because from what I understand, it was the first 2-part Littlest Hobo, like a to be continued. That was a rarity. There's fans out there who they know every single detail and statistic about every show, and apparently it was the most watched Littlest Hobo by numbers. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's what he told me. Wow. And that was really cool. I love doing that. And
did you got to work with the dog? Is it London?
Yeah, London is the main dog, but there were actually 4 more Londons on set.
Wow.
And again, I was 9 or 10 years old when I did that. And these dogs are fantastic. I mean, they're just so beautiful and very well behaved. Wow. And you know, they're long shooting days, and of course, as soon as they call cut, I want to cuddle with the dogs. And it was, no, sorry, Hadley. These are working dogs. Whenever they call cut, they go quietly into a corner with me, and you know, they can't be distracted and blah, blah, blah. So it was torture for me because it was a long shoot. Like I said, it was 2 episodes and I was in every scene. So yeah, but it was a lot of fun. That's for sure. And a Canadian classic. And so
that's great. And they call cut, and then the dog just says, "I'll be in my trailer,"
pretty
and
much
then just goes off and
give me some kibble.
Yeah, kibble, exactly.
Take out the red one.
Awesome. And the other one, you told me just now that you were in Kids of the Hall. Well,
I was.
Wow.
Except you don't hear me. It's a funny little skit. Again, I haven't even seen the skit, but it was a really quick turnaround, and the skit involved somewhere in Europe. We'll say Russia, but I think it was just generic Eastern European bloc.
Yeah.
And the send-up was on the show Cheers, in a place like Cheers, but in the Eastern Bloc. And off camera, they asked me, to sing, because I do sing and I write music, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I auditioned. They said, can you sing the Cheers theme song, but with a Russian type of accent? So I auditioned for it, just, having a lot of fun, knowing it's, Kids in the Hall. And sure enough, they're like, yeah, we're going to need you tomorrow. Be on set, BC, blah, blah, blah. And I'm standing off camera singing, making way in world today, take everything you got. Yeah. Wouldn't you like to get away? Yeah.
Everybody knows your name.
Yeah. Exactly. So I would love to find this stuff. It's amazing how much I've done, and I've actually never seen the final product, but that's a Canadiana for you.
Canadiana, yeah.
Yes.
That's amazing. Fantastic. So now the other, I forgot to ask, like when you were working with the Londons, the Dogs, did they inspire you for your voice as Scooby-Doo? Because you played Scooby-Doo at some point, right?
I did, another weird little pit stop. Yeah. Along the journey, when I moved to Los Angeles as a voice actor, and I was just about ready to pack it in at this point. It's such a different climate, and the best of the best are there. And, I got an opportunity to audition for Scooby-Doo after the original actor had passed away, the actor who had been doing it for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
And yeah, and there was no show anymore. In fact, there hadn't even been a Scooby series for like 10 years. So it was just like, we need somebody who can do Scooby's voice, obviously, but he's going to be in video games, theme park rides, commercials. So I was kind of like the auxiliary Scooby.
Yeah.
And I think I got it solely based on the laugh. I do Scooby's laugh.
That's good.
I just have it. Like I spent years lying on my stomach watching, after school every day, I'd watch the show. And I used to love doing the laugh. And but anyway,
little did you know that years later you would be paid to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's cool.
Like I said, there was no big project until about 2 years into doing it. They just call me in to do these little things. Mm-hmm. And then they finally said, congratulations, your big movie is coming. Warner Brothers has bought the rights to do the movie with, and this is the one that was with Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Right. Yeah.
And Freddie Prinze Jr. And I was like, that's it. This is what I've been, I've been an actor since I was 5.
My moment is coming. Yeah.
I was like 28, 29 at the time, and I felt like my ticket has come in. And William Hanna himself picked me. I was beating out guys who, these guys are my idols, like people from The Simpsons. The guy from Full House, Joey. I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I was actually praising him in the audition, saying, you're perfect for that. I love watching your impersonations on Full House, and he's like, oh, thanks, man. That's really sweet of you, man. And like, I wasn't thinking at all I was going to get it, but I prayed I would. And I did. And then once Warner Brothers got involved, unfortunately, that's when more people get involved, and they want their people. Originally, they wanted to attach a star to Scooby-Doo.
Right. And
I wasn't. And back then, they wanted bigger names to sell big movies. So, well, they still do, but especially in animation. So they couldn't actually find anyone to do it, but I was out of the running. They just kind of, they hit the reset button, and this was after they congratulated me. So,
oh jeez, that sucks.
Yeah, it was
like a real punch in the gut. Yeah,
it was a long road to recovery for me. It was really embarrassing, to be honest with you.
Right. Well, it was kind of unfair that they congratulated you and said, "Hey, you got it," and then you're like, "Yeah," and then all of a sudden it's like, "Oh yeah, by the way."
It was kind of like having a winning lottery ticket and jumping up and down for joy. And then on the way to collect the winnings, it falls in a puddle and all the numbers wash off. That's how I describe that, because those are once in a lifetime opportunities. And really at the end of the day, it wasn't necessary to get rid of me. It was just a matter of politics. And
right.
A lot of people are like, you were Scooby-Doo, man. I'm like, yeah, but for like TV commercials. And yeah, it was just for this video game or Six Flags. You know, so, and they're like, no, you were the second guy in history. So they try and prop me up. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like a fraud though. I was never in the shows. So yeah, but I am.
But you were almost in the movie.
I was very proud. Yeah, I was hugely proud. And like I said, William Hanna himself handpicked me over the biggest talent in Los Angeles, in basically North America. I think they got everyone to audition for that at the time. And
that says a lot. Like, that is something to be proud of.
Really, I'm hugely proud of it. And, you know, back then I was just deeply sad, but now I'm very proud. You know, I wish I could, when people say, oh, what were you in? I wish I could say, yeah, it's the Scooby and the Monsters on Zombie Island or something like that. I can't say that, unfortunately. But who knows? One day it may come back around. You never
know. If there's anybody out there listening and they need Scooby to come back, this is the guy. Yeah. All right. And another thing is, you've got some pretty impressive connections too, right? You're Uncle Hadley to Finn and Nick Wolford, who Finn is the star of the remake of It, and also Stranger Things, right?
Yes.
And Nick, like his uncle, is primarily a voice actor, and he's appeared on podcasts talking about the perils of voice acting. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit more about Finn and Nick.
First of all, they're amazing kids. These guys, I love these kids. They're not really kids anymore. They're both bigger than me. But you know what? They're incredibly talented. Even you know, I remember Nick's parents calling me and saying, you know, Nick's interested in this voice thing. We're not sure. Would you have a listen? And to be honest with you, voice is a very specialized niche. Like, you know, a lot of people will say, especially to me over the years, my son has this great voice, or people tell me I have a wonderful voice. And I'm like, well, it's not just about voice. It's a craft. And you either get it or you don't. There's so much really to learn before you can start expecting to even make a penny from it. So I said, you know, I'll have a listen, but, you know, I'm prepared to say that it's probably going to be a very tough climb. And so he sent me his son Nick's work, and I sat there. Just everything was, I'm like, where do these kids get it from? Because Finn before him had already started doing amazing things in film and television, and these kids, they just have it. They just have it. And
it's in the blood.
So I called his dad back. I said, you know, I was fully prepared to gently say sorry. You know, but he was fantastic. He really has something here, and sure enough, today you can see he's doing quite well. And yeah, I love the family, love the kids. I couldn't say enough great things about them. Yeah,
cool. And later on, I'm going to ask you about another connection you have to Hollywood star. But before I go into that, I just wanted to mention. I noticed a Patney merge from your early years, Hadley. You were Bradley in Meatballs and Radley in Beverly Hills Teens. I just wondered if at some point you had a rider that stated that your character's name has to rhyme with your own.
No, I think I should have, because I was a diva by then. I think I'd done enough. I'd already done about 100 commercials by then. So yeah, I think I deserve to have that rider. No, it was a freak incident.
Merely coincidence.
And maybe it was just a little bit of fun on behalf of the people who hired me. They thought, Hadley Bradley, let's hire him.
Yeah.
And that's what they called me on Meatballs, which we shot over the course of about 6 weeks up in Haliburton, Ontario.
Oh, wow.
Camp White Pine is where it was actually shot.
You must have met the man himself, right?
Yes.
Bill Murray. What was Bill Murray like?
Well, he was the one who called me Hadley Bradley. And so on set, everyone, no one would say, "Hey, Hadley." It was always, "Hey, Hadley Bradley, come on." So that's how they would greet me. And he was amazing. He was a really nice man. He's who you would hope he would be. They'd rented him a big cottage, and he, offered it to my parents. My parents were up there as my chaperones, Okay. So he'd say, "I'm not really using the cottage. I've been staying with some of the other actors, and, please feel free to use the cottage." And, he was just a very lovely guy. And
I've seen, like, every video I've seen of him, he's just been, like, he's been doing crazy things, but
yes,
as a really nice guy. Like, I've heard he turns up to people. He'll just turn up at a bar and start serving drinks.
Yeah.
And
yeah, he has pretty improvisation never really ends.
Yes.
For guys like him, and he's bearing that out.
It's amazing.
So,
he doesn't even have an agent. Like, he's his own agent as well. Yeah.
Yep. He has a phone number, and he says, "If I want to do it, I will show up." And I think the story goes, "If I say I'm going to do it, I will show up on the day. Tell me where to be on day one." And people just cross their fingers hoping he actually will show up, because he's inaccessible essentially up till that point, from what I understand. But Meatballs, Meatballs itself was originally a 3.5-hour screenplay.
Wow.
In which I actually had a much bigger role initially. That film was closer to a Porky's originally. It was quite crass.
Okay. And, because there's still a trace of that in it.
There is a trace of that, but not nearly as much, and that's because of Bill. He didn't want it to be. He wanted it to have a sense of fun and some family values. He didn't want it all to be about the one-line joke,
Right.
So my character originally was like so I was playing a 6-year-old camper. I was actually 9. Mm-hmm. But my little 6-year-old character would say stuff like, I won't say it. I don't know if I can swear on a podcast.
Yeah, you can. You can swear on my podcast. Yeah,
it was full out, like, we were in a boat in one scene, and they got water on us, and I'm like, those Mohawks are fucking assholes. But this is coming from a 6-year-old.
Wow.
So all these, like, really funny lines were actually cut. And the way I got that part, because I said I was 8 or 9, but it was all kind of improvised loosely on the script, and I didn't know there was a whole bunch of us in a room. And it was the scene where the person who was supposed to run the race for our camp broke her leg. So they were like, "So who are we going to get to run the race? Come on, who's going to do it?" And they throw out a few names. Yeah. And it's like, "Come on, who?" And I wasn't on script, so I just raised my hand and I said, "I'll do it." And so the whole room fell apart laughing. And apparently that's why I got the role. That line, of course, was supposed to be for Rudy the Rabbit, and who ended up also being a good friend of my family's, Chris Making. We're still all close today, so
that's cool.
Yeah,
awesome. So what caused you, Hadley, to start heading more towards voice work as opposed to acting? Why did you go down that route?
Yeah. Well, the first jobs I ever did were voiceovers, and also as a singer. Like, before, apparently, when I was about 3 or 4 years old, I was a weird little kid. I stood in front of my parents with words on a page and started singing. Singing is really my big love, my passion. And
and do you go down the karaoke often?
No, no. Oddly enough, in fact, I'm really bad with lyrics and other songs. I don't know if I tune them out. I focus really heavily on the construction of the song itself. But my own words, I pour a ton of energy into and what have you. But to answer your question, I think I was always a voice-oriented person, whether it was singing or the early commercials, and I did a lot of them, even though I was doing movie and TV. I was doing a boatload of commercials, and
well, that was your bread and butter, and I suppose so the movie was kind of like a side distraction, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, it just wasn't as consistent. You couldn't do a movie every week, and I was literally, I think, from the time I was 6, 7 years old until I left to go to LA when I was 25. I was doing 100+ commercials a year.
Wow.
Yeah, I was a crazy working voice actor in the city, and very fortunate. So that was kind of always my draw, I guess.
Okay.
And then when I got to LA and I started with Scooby and everything, I just kind of lost sight of the whole process as an on-camera actor, having to remember lines, having to look a certain way, the whole stomach churning before auditions.
Right.
I had outgrown it. I did well on camera. I starred in movies and television shows. I can't even say it now. That's probably another reason why I'm not doing it. I'm starring in television.
Let's do that again. You kind of fluffed that one, Hadley.
You can keep that. I love television, and I'm sick and back.
I've only had 2 wines, 2 bottles.
I'm not as sick as you drunk I am. No. Awesome.
So your more recent years have seen you become the voice behind big names like Family Channel, Rogers, Dot Koretka, GMC, OLG. Do you prefer commercial work or trailers or animation? What would you say is your preferred?
You know what? I have no preference. I think as an art form, I loved the chill that a trailer guy would give me when I was in the theater. It just we call it the voice of God. And, when I was a smoker, which I was from I think the time I was about 16 till I was 40.
Okay. I thought you were going to say from when you were about 6. I could just imagine you on the set with Christopher Reeve puffing away at some Gauloise or something.
Could you imagine Chris in his Superman cape, hauling off his cigarette? No, the funny thing is, I think that lent a lot of the low end to my voice as a smoker. I wasn't crazy heavy smoker, but heavy enough that it affected my voice. And when I quit, I lost some of that. So some days, it depends how much sleep I've had. Some days I can still do that. Coming up next, it's an all-new Saturday night special,
Yeah. Awesome.
Sorry.
In the world.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask, what advice would you give to any budding voice talent looking to be successful in the commercial field? But I think your answer is to be like smoking 10 packs a day.
Yeah, don't do it. Run like hell. It's, it's got to be something you love, and it's got to be something that you look at with a sense of reality, because it's a very niche business that can pay dividends, but to the very few. And sometimes it doesn't even matter if you're the best person in the room. There's so many variables. And this goes for on camera too, where they need you to fit a certain dynamic, or you didn't look quite like their co-star or whatever. There's so many things at play. So I would say, for me, I circumvented the normal route of what it would take to be a voice guy, because I just started doing it at 6.
Right.
Yeah. And I was taught by great directors, and great writers, people from the age of Mad Men,
Okay, yeah.
I had those classic guys saying, "Now this is how it's done, Hadley," with those smoky tones, and everyone was smoking. You could smoke in hospitals then. It was,
right, yeah. And they had it like a short back and sides.
Yeah, I'm surprised I wasn't smoking at 6. Let's do another take, Dad, and throw me a deck of smokes, would you?
Awesome.
You're sick, Dad. You're sick.
So, Hadley, how much time do you devote to honing your craft? So, like, for example, attending workshops or taking classes, that kind of thing.
It's kind of been ingrained to me. As a child, that was my training ground. And because I'm a working voice guy, I think I'm kind of training as I'm working. I'm lifting weights as I'm going. But as you get older, there are certainly things where, my voice might fatigue earlier than it used to.
Okay.
When I was 25, I could go out, smoke a pack of cigarettes and drink, which I don't do much of actually. And I'd sound like gold the next day, whereas now I could take, a jar of honey and the lemon and all the right elixirs and, put my head over a towel over my head and steam, and I still sound like crap. It's just, that's what happens.
And you also, you mentioned earlier about getting plenty of sleep the night before and that kind of thing. So you have like a fairly strict regimen to make sure that you're prepped the next day.
Yes, and if I told you, I'd have to kill you. No, no, there's no real secret. Just routine, really. I kind of prep myself days before if I have that luxury. Sometimes I don't find out the night before I'm working, but
right.
Yeah, I just try and eat early, make sure I'm not doing anything, not having any late night coffees, that kind of thing.
Right.
And limit the amount of caffeine I might have the day before.
Right.
But then again, like I said, when you're young, those things don't affect you as much. These days, those things I'm noticing, they affect me a little bit more. So I have to be more.
Yeah. Some people say don't drink too much milk or don't have too much milk in your coffee because otherwise you get kind of,
phlegmy.
Phlegmy.
You know what? I think some of these things personally are
bullshit.
I don't know if it's bullshit, but I don't know if they're like, I don't think these things help. I don't think you should go out of your way to have milk, but milk in your coffee, I don't think it's going to matter. I built a whole career drinking 3-4 coffees in the middle of a session. Right. But as you get older, maybe these things can affect you a little more. So, I just take as a precaution, like I won't eat like oily foods or whatever. Oily foods while I'm doing a session could create some reflux, which would create some of that stuff too. And it's not dairy at all. So, sometimes I'll have a 5 or 6 hour session or longer sometimes. And they take a break and say, we're just going to have our catered lunch now, Hadley, and you can watch us through the glass. Make yourself comfortable. But then, no, they do offer me a catered lunch often. And I just say, you know what, until I'm finished, I'd rather just not clog up the pipes. And even though I'm dying to eat and I'm gurgling now on mic, not now, but while I'm working and they're hearing me go, but
like, what was that? Let's retake it. There was something happening.
It was intentional. It was part of the character. I'm a method actor here. So
awesome. So just before you go, because I know that earlier on you said you hadn't eaten yet. So I know that. So I
ordered my food that it would come during this interview.
Right, and then you can go, there's someone at the door, gotta go. Yeah. So before that happens, you mentioned that you are a buddy of a megastar who everybody knows.
Many.
How long have you known Keanu?
I've known him so long that he wasn't even Keanu. When I first met him, he was Keanu. And I'll tell you why this was, because nobody knew it was an exotic Hawaiian pronunciation. It was, and he wasn't the type of guy who would correct you.
Right.
So to all of us Canadians, we had him rhyming with a piano, basically.
Right, right.
And so the story with Keanu is that he befriended my older brother, and they were best friends right up until my brother's wedding. Well, they're still best friends to this day, but Keanu was best man at his wedding. And
awesome. Everybody wants Keanu to be best man at the wedding.
Yeah, I'm sure, especially now. I mean, to me, he's just he's a brother to me. When I watch his movies, I see the little things that I remember about him long before he was famous. So it's a bit weird for me to watch a lot of his things. And also being a voice guy, I can totally do the things that he does. So every time he's talking, you get this sense of Keanu and stuff. I can do that.
Absolutely. You got him down. Absolutely. You got him down.
And I grew up with that, though. Like, I have a totally unfair advantage. So, in fact, I'd had voice jobs after he went to LA. I'd say, I did a voiceover, and what did they want me to do? Sound like you. And he's like, excellent. All right.
Party on.
Yeah, well, he stopped short of saying that, but I do remember him saying, ka-ching. Yeah. So he's like, so do me. And I'm like, well, I'm doing you right now. But I'm doing that guy, the guy who talks like this. So he's mellowed out on that jerky kind of big body movement. He's moved away from that. He has a more refined voice now.
Right. The one thing I maybe shouldn't mention is the accent he did, the English accent he did in that one movie.
Yeah, and especially, it's especially funny because he literally spent hundreds of days a year in my house with my British family.
That's right.
And he was studying my parents for years. Like literally, he was at our table for dinner 100 nights a year. And he was on our hockey teams. He saw our births and deaths and weddings, and so
you see the missing factor there was that he didn't have a dialect coach. See that's what it is.
Exactly, and I was leading back around to that myself. Even it's a dialect coach is invaluable. Many people have asked me to do it, and I say, you know what? Go to a legitimate. I know how to do it for myself, but they have skills. We have a skill set that is worth looking into because they know what you need to do to pull out that performance. I don't know. So I guess he didn't. I actually didn't know he didn't have a dialect coach.
Let's just. That was a long time ago, and it was unfair of me to bring up. But the guy is so freaking awesome anyway.
He is. Right? He is awesome, and even with that accent, he has incredible magnetism, and he's truly invested in his roles. Yeah, he's one of the most well-read people, and people would never know this. The man soaks up books like you wouldn't believe. When he's not working, he's reading. He's a very smart man, and I'm proud as hell of him. He's family, and I want nothing from him but for him to be happy, because he deserves it, and he's been really most excellent to everybody he knows.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can see. I mean, number one, this is like a megastar, and he still rides the subway, right?
Yeah.
So he's in the subway, and then he gives up his seat to a random stranger. It's like, here, sit down. Like, wow.
Well, Toronto never left him, and I think that is a credit to how we were brought up here. And those values, a lot of us, we cry about them, how we long for those days when, those things were a given. I think that is attributed to the environment we grew up in. It was just what you did. And it was nice to see. It was nice to see.
Cool. Hadley, I wish you all the best, and I look forward to hearing your voice and stuff coming up in the future. Is there anything in the pipelines that we should listen out for?
Well, I am the voice of Rogers, and they do a lot of commercials, and so primarily you'll hear me in that because that's become my exclusive voice work. I work only for the mothership, and I love it. I'm very proud of it.
Thanks so much, Hadley.
Thank you.
And enjoy your dinner when it finally arrives.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hadley. Cheers.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Take care.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
I hope you'll be joining me for episode 3 of Talk Like That, in which I'll be talking to actor, writer, and producer Juan Carlos Vélez about growing up as a child actor in El Salvador and later adopting Canada as his new home. I'll also be asking him about racial typecasting and why he learned a constructed language from 10,000 BCE. If you'd like to stay updated about future episodes of Talk Like That, and you'd like to see links to interesting and informative articles and videos of the kind of stuff we talk about in the podcast, or if you have related articles to share with us, join the Talk Like That Together Facebook group. The theme music for Talk Like That is Antarctica by Audionautics and is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution license.